Thank you very much for staying with us. South Africa secured a $4.3 billion in emergency loan from the International Monetary Fund, the largest emergency disbursement of any country yet. The funds will go towards supporting government efforts addressing the challenging health situation and severe economic impact of COVID-19 shock. All right, for more on this, we're joined by Managing Director at Lehumo Investments Maudi Lentsoane. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us here on SABC News.
Good afternoon, Florence, and thanks for having me.
I don't want to start on a negative note, so let me begin here. If this loan is to be distributed correctly and used properly, where should we really start distributing that money when there's so many sectors that are requiring help at this time, especially this year while we deal with a pandemic?
Well, I guess, Florence, the first area, really, there are two critical areas. One is on the health side. We need to, bring under control this pandemic and ensure that it does not spread at a pace which will then further put our health system under severe pressure. I mean, our healthcare system is already under a lot of pressure. It was already the system that was just not up to par to be able to deal with such a pandemic, and therefore these funds, the much needed funds, will need to be deployed in that area, the health space, to ensure that we can respond quickly and bring the virus under control. That's the one area. But also, not forgetting that there are many South Africans who've lost their jobs. They don't have means. They don't know where their next meal is going to come from. So the economic impact is also very important. We need to ensure that some of these funds end up in the economic cluster to be able to support the South African economy, so that South Africans are able to live and able to survive this pandemic economically.
You say these funds are much needed, and correctly so, but we saw 500 billion rand coming in, and one would have thought that that money would have been directed to these particular sectors that you speak of course, the health sector in particular. But one would look at 500 billion rand, I think that's a huge amount. And why is it that you can't really see and you can't point specifically as to what you see in terms of where that 500 billion rand was spent? Or what are your thoughts on this and people asking questions about that initial 500 billion rand and whether or not we're actually asking for too many loans?
Yeah, Flo, I mean, there's a lot of confusion around these figures. When I look at the South African economy and I look what has really transpired over the past couple of months, I don't believe that 500 billion has already been spent into this economy. I think the figures we're talking about here, we're mixing up the numbers, because my understanding of the 500 billion was that it was going to come, one, from the reallocation of the previous budget, certain sectors cutting back and making sure that we raise that money from other sectors, but also there was a portion that is going to come in a form of loans. So the question is this loan that is coming from the IMF rather, part of the 500 billion? That's a lot of questions, and I think the right people will respond to that. I'm not able to confirm that 500 billion has been spent already in the economy. I don't think it has been spent. I think far less has been spent at this stage. So we need to verify those numbers and ensure that when we speak, we're not speaking into speculation that is there in the social media, but we are speaking about the actual numbers that have been spent into the economy.
Well, the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, has been at pains to explain to us as South Africans that this IMF loans has no strings attached. That's very difficult. It's hard to believe that a loan this big would have no strings attached. Do you believe that? Do you believe that it will have no sort of question marks for South Africans in coming years, where we end up being so indebted to the IMF? I mean, I find it quite difficult to believe that there are no strings attached to this particular loan.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, there's no such a thing as a no strings attached loan. There's definitely going to be the terms and conditions put around this loan. But I think what perhaps the minister is referring to is the fact that we are getting favorable, interest rates on this loan. And this is particularly because the IMF has recognized the fact that many countries have come under a lot of pressure due to the COVID-19, and they've now come up with, packages which allows countries to access these funds at reasonable interest rates compared to if you had just gone under normal circumstances, gone to the IMF and borrowed money. The interest rates would have definitely been high. And if you look at South Africa, if we're getting good interest rates from the IMF under the COVID-19 umbrella, it's far beneficial for us because we are a country that is in a junk status. Our cost of borrowing in the bond market would have been excessively higher. So I think we're making much bigger savings by going the IMF route.
I don't know if you've been looking at or paying attention rather to, what some people have been saying. A lot of people actually have been saying about this loan and where it'll go and so forth. And many people thinking or saying that it will be directed to, the wrong hands where we could see, corruption. I mean, the debate over this loan was whether or not, if it was a good idea or not, and whether we'll get it or not. Now it has moved more to whether or not it will be put to good use and whether it will be used in terms of for corrupt elements or corrupt causes. What is your take on this sort of this people being so skeptical about where this money will actually end up?
You really can't blame. I mean, just looking at our past, flow, you can't really blame people from really questioning whether the money will be utilized effectively, because we are a country that has really just taken our foot off in terms of dealing with decisively with corruption. I mean, we've got currently ongoing the state the capture commission that is ongoing, and we are hearing reports that already that some monies have been awarded irregularly. There's some irregularities that are happening within the procurement space in terms of the PPEs. So those are the worrying, developments. And of course, unless we are able to deal decisively with the corrupt means, corruption steals from this economy. Corruption is the one biggest, enemy of our country. And unless we really deal decisively with the corrupt people and make sure that we put measures in place to ensure that they cannot have a space to, push their corrupt activities, we are going to find ourselves in a very, very difficult position. And already the society is starting to lose confidence in the government's ability to deal with that decisively. And that's a big concern.
All right. Maudi, thank you very much for giving us your time, as always, here on SABC News. We appreciate it.